Hi everyone, and welcome back to Patrick Perspective. We're your hosts, Sarah
and David.
And today we're talking about video conferencing platforms. We're still technically in a pandemic, and this past year and a half almost, crazy.
Since March 2020, we've been everyone's using video conference platforms.
You have to.
My grandma's using video platforms.
You had to teach it to them.
Yes.
It's a crazy time that we're lucky that we have these platforms to still be able to do our everyday things, but there are so many different of them.
A lot of different ones. Each has their perks and peeves, and sometimes I have pet peeves, and it's curious. I guess today we're going to talk about what some of the ones that we've used and we have experience with, and some of the things that we like about some of them, some things that we dislike about some of them. And I'm sure there'll be some that we haven't mentioned. There's some that we know about that are questionable. Are they a video conference platform?
Right. I think it goes beyond it, because even the ones that I put question marks by, I definitely relied on them in this pandemic.
Right. There's a lot of tools.
Right. So even if I didn't use it for necessarily the video conferencing aspect, it was definitely a easy way of communication.
Yes.
So we'll touch on those too. So to kick it off, probably the most popular one.
We all know we're Microsoft people, but let's be, if I'm going to be honest.
Right. The most popular one that at least I've heard of and use is Zoom. So I don't know about you, but I didn't hear about Zoom until the pandemic hit. When I was in school and we were like, what are we gonna do about classes?
Well,
I was like,
funny story is that you and I actually used Zoom back in 2019
That's true.
for Tech Girls Code Breakers, and at the time it was just some tool, and we didn't really think of it as Zoom. It was just whatever we were using.
I didn't even know it was Zoom until after, when I learned what Zoom was in March 2020, a whole year later, and I was watching back on the video about Code Breakers, and it it records us doing a video conference, and I was like, that looks like Zoom.
That was Zoom. We actually already used Zoom.
Right.
Didn't realize
because I'd never heard of it, and it came off as just, a really easy conferencing platform. You easily generate the link, you send it out to whoever, join the meeting really easily. I think it might have. Do you even need an account? I can't remember the first time I joined a Zoom meeting.
Don't think so. I think it had the ability.
It was super easy.
And if we're rating these systems, what's important to a lot of people is the ability to join easily and quickly, because there's nothing like trying to get into a meeting 2 minutes before it starts. Heaven forbid if you're the presenter and you're trying to get on so you can present and you're having technical difficulties. Zoom, for the most part, has been very easy. Here's my link. I'm on. I mean, sometimes it's too easy. There's the whole Zoom bombing.
That was huge in the beginning. Zoom bombing, where
people had the link and they could just join your meeting. Who is
belong.
This? Right. So there is that trade-off. There's a balance of, is it too easy to join? Is it, and I think Microsoft Teams, which we'll talk about in a second, kind of has all these security configurations and some defaults that make it harder to join. So it gets a lot of knocks for that, where Zoom was by default less secure.
At the beginning. I think it has improved.
It absolutely
now.
was, because there was a whole article where they said, hey, we have to change some default settings and make it to prevent that Zoom bombing.
Right, and then, at least for me specifically, my university made it a policy, so you had to have a school account to go into the meeting, and if not, you were automatically put into a waiting room and had to be admitted. So that was an added layer of security that helped. So it definitely improved over this past year, and people still use it a ton.
Well, and that's the thing, is because we got introduced as this really super easy tool to use, it got wildly popular, and everyone kind of, it was one of these things where you actually use it as, want to do a Zoom call, it was like a Kleenex. It's a tissue, but people say, give me a Kleenex, and they mean tissue. Let's do a Zoom.
Let's do a Zoom call.
Like, what? Yeah. So then what? Probably the most used is Zoom. Microsoft Teams, being Microsoft folks, is, for at least for us, are probably secondly most used, or maybe the first most used now that we use it so much. Again, it was a version 1.0 a few years ago. It's been improved much over the last couple of years. They're constantly putting out new features with the breakout rooms.
Yeah, that was a huge one.
That was a huge, because Zoom had that first, and that was kind of a sticking point for Teams. Then it came out with being able, the ability to raise your hand and have reactions, and it's in my mind, and I'm a Microsoft guy, so it pains me to say this, but I feel like Microsoft Teams is still playing catch up with Zoom. You go to Zoom, you got all these cool features, and Teams they announce it. Hey, look at this feature. Like, okay, yeah, we had that in Zoom. All right, Teams, appreciate that you have it now.
It's honestly a little too bad because I really like Teams because it has the integrated part of having to communicate with your people in the team after you create a team.
Yeah.
And like I wish I used that for classes because instead of using something like Teams where we could communicate, upload files and everything all in one platform and do the video calls, we would have Zoom links but then have to use something else. And we'll touch on these in a minute, but it was Discord or Slack or something else. It was always multiple things and it was different for every class. So I was like, oh, I gotta check this different platform for this class and then this one, and some of them were, none of them, it was just email, and I was constantly checking all these things.
And I think that's the key, is if you're comparing, video conference platforms on solely the video calling, Zoom versus Teams, Zoom was out first, had more features, still has more features, but the Teams is more integrated. So like you say, you can have a Teams call, but you also have SharePoint files through Teams, you're collaborating together, you could do it all with one integrated set of tools versus the other one, you've got all these different sets of tools, and not everyone's going to choose the same set of tools. So it really helps to be integrated. People hear that word integration, is this integrated? You don't really think about it, but it means less clicks, less signing in and out, where everything just kind of works. To me, that's what's great about Teams, that everything works together once you're in it.
Yeah, I think for people like us, tech people, and we had already used Teams in the past, it was really easy for us to pick up, but for other people who either just have a harder time learning tech, which I totally get, not everyone's tech people, or just like don't want to learn something new. Right, Zoom was so easy to just log into and get onto a call versus Teams, I think, is more of a learning curve to get used to all those tools.
And the tricky part with Teams, I think, is that because it can be configured very tightly or very loosely, if depending on who is organizing a conference or a meeting, you'll have different experiences with Teams. So we use Teams with our Tech Girls workshops, and we configure it very loosely to try to allow the girls to enter it very easily, and they actually picked it up it's been very successful with that, because the girls join, we admit them, they have pretty much, they can do pretty much anything, they can share their own screens, they can come off mute, we let them, so there's very little friction for them to get in and collaborate, and so even though they were familiar with Zoom, because we did a few Tech Girl workshops with Zoom,
in the beginning,
but Microsoft Teams, it was a very seamless transition, not a lot of issues when we configured it very loosely. But we have participated in conferences where it's not configured very loosely.
We say that because we had a few recent events where we were not the organizers, of course, and they had their own security settings in the background, and basically we were presenters, but they either didn't use the right emails for us or something.
Wasn't quite right.
We got it. Well, for me, I couldn't get in at all.
Not at all.
None of my accounts
Minutes
worked.
Before you're ready to go.
I had to go in through his account. So that one was a total mess. And then for him, he had a different link.
And I wasn't a presenter.
He wasn't a presenter, so and no one else in the room.
We couldn't chat.
we couldn't go off mute.
Couldn't go off mute. The only thing I could do was turn my camera on. So I was about to pick up cue cards. Hi guys, we'll start in a minute.
So
I mean, gosh.
we were like frantically typing anyone who
mentioning
being like, hi, can you please promote me to presenter?
Yes. You know what I could have done? I was thinking as we were doing, and eventually they did make me a presenter and things went, but I probably could have grabbed a cue card that had a Zoom link or a Jamboard link or some other tool and said, go here for my session because this one's not working.
That's what we had to do for a different Tech Girls event. We had all this set up, and then because we didn't organize the Teams link,
tightly.
Right. We really wanted to have the girls interact in the chat, but none of them could chat.
Nope.
So, and we had all this other setup for files for them to access. They couldn't access anything.
Nope. So we swept that all away and went to Jamboard.
Yeah, I wonder if Microsoft has a version of that. I've used Jamboard in the past from Google.
They have their own whiteboard built into Teams, but you have to.
But it wasn't working.
Right. You have to have that permission.
Right. So sorry, Microsoft. I had to turn to Google and use Jamboard, and then even then, to get the link to the Jamboard, I had to share my screen and type out the URL for the girls to get it.
Because we didn't have chat.
Right. Yes.
I didn't know Jamboard was Google.
Yes.
Oh, well.
Right. That's okay. We're being very honest here. Open and honest. All right.
And speaking of Google, so we should mention their video conference platform, Google Hangouts, which
Yes.
I've only used once or twice.
I actually use this a lot. So I work on the advising team for my school, for my major, and they use Google Hangouts a lot.
Okay.
And it's really easy to use if you're in the Google space. So for us,
Makes
we
sense.
use Gmail a lot, and we use GChat, which is the quick way to DM each other. And right through that GChat, you can click on the video call and it opens it up. Or even with your Google Calendar, if you're scheduling an event, you can just be like, hey, let me use Google Meet. So that's a really easy way if you're using that.
Well, and it's just like we were saying with Microsoft Teams, where if you're in the Microsoft Teams world and you're using a Microsoft account, everything's integrated. It's same thing. If you're already in Gmail and you have your Gmail account and and you use all the tools, that's what people don't realize. Is sometimes they think, well, I'm going to use this tool and this tool and this tool, but if they're not all talking to each other, it makes it difficult. So I try to work with the tools that have been given to me. If I've been given a Gmail account for University of Maryland and those tools all talking to each other, it doesn't matter. I know Zoom and I like Zoom, or I know Teams and I like Teams. I should take the time to learn Google Hangouts and use it amongst those tools. It takes a little bit of time to pick it up, but it's so much easier once it's all integrated.
Yeah, true. No, yeah, I like Google Hangouts, but am I going to go out of my way to use it versus the other ones?
I mean,
Probably
if it's there, if it's already part of a series of services you're using for whatever you're doing, fine. But you're right. Is that going to be a tool that you pick up and use for our next TechScore event? Probably.
Yeah, no, there was an interesting situation where I started a new club at my school, and it was still within my major, so we were using Google Hangouts to do our planning and whatever, but then it came to actually hosting our first meeting during the virtual world, and we were like, oh, actually, we didn't talk about it. It's, one of my team members that I assigned to make the link, she made a Google Hangout link, and I was like, oh, but for school we usually use Zoom. We only use Google Hangout to do the planning.
Right.
So then we ended up being like, no, just use Zoom, because most students would just use Zoom.
Right.
So that was like a weird thing. It's like, which one should we use?
Well, it's funny because that is a consideration. You want a tool, depending on if you're just meeting with a group, then you want whatever tool that's available, handy, and everyone's already in. But if you're doing a larger audience, like a webinar or something like that, you really want something that they're familiar with, that's easy to join. And Zoom, I mean, gosh. Now, it used to be WebEx. That's on our list.
Yeah.
WebEx, I guess if you went out there and looked at the most market share, I bet you there's still 1, 2, or 3, because they were for so long the webinar company.
That's what I use primarily for my last internship.
Right.
Library of Congress.
Yep. We used to own licenses of it, and just recently got off of that and moved to Teams because it was part of our Office 365 subscription, and we were paying for 2 subscriptions. But WebEx used to be sort of the gold standard of webinar software. And it had a lot of great features. I used to use it with SQL. Microsoft, what was it? SQL Saturdays used, which was funny because it was a Microsoft organization that used WebEx, but it was fantastic when they ran their webinars. It was, I actually enjoyed it versus when I was using Teams, and it was a little more not as tight. WebEx it's been around. It's a mature product, and not a lot of bugs. It works really, really well.
I was gonna say it's one of the OGs for me that I definitely heard of from forever ago. Yeah. I'm trying to remember if there's anything specific that I don't like about WebEx. I'm not sure. Does it have breakout rooms or? Oh gosh,
I'm pretty sure it does. My favorite feature, if we're going to talk favorite features, was the ability to resize the presentation and the presenter's face. So you could do side by because that's one thing about Teams that bothers me is that you don't really have control over the face of the presenter, right? It's a little tiny box when they're big face. But WebEx, you can make them equal, you could make them smaller. I just love that. Just recently, a lot of people with Microsoft Teams are using something called, I think it's OBS, and what it does is it takes your webcam and puts your presentation through the webcam, so that your face can be over top of your presentation, and you have better control over the size of your face.
Interesting.
And it's really interesting because so then instead of you don't share your screen, you share your webcam. You have them spotlight your webcam because it's also your presentation. And that's all the rage, but it takes a little bit of setup. And to me, it feels like a hack. I'm like, why? And actually, Teams is coming out with a feature now that you don't have to do that. You can just overlay your face on top of your presentation through the share screen.
Gotcha.
But WebEx was doing this kind of cool stuff, What other ones do we have
Yeah,
you used?
the next one is sort of 2-in-1. It's Skype, and then there's also Skype for Business.
Right.
Yeah, Skype's another OG one for me.
Yep.
But isn't Skype for Business like not being used anymore?
No, Teams is definitely. Microsoft said Teams will replace that, and
Skype and Skype for Business, or
well, Skype for Business. I guess Skype was personal, so I think they're both still out there. I know my company had Skype for Business, but it did get yanked and actually replaced. Our license got replaced with Teams. So I don't know about Skype personal, but yeah, I mean now Microsoft Teams just did recently come out with Teams for personal use. So you can use your personal account, like your Hotmail account or whatever, and you don't have to have a tenant. You would just be it'd be your own login, and you can join other people's meetings and all that. So I think regular Skype's probably going to go away now that Teams Personal is available.
I was going to say, I think, at least this happened to me, there's some confusion of Skype versus Skype for Business. I had an interview set up for me once.
Yes.
And they said, like, let's do it over Skype. And I was like, okay. And then it was right before the interview. I was like, ooh.
What did they mean?
Which one?
Right.
And they also specified that they were going to call me, and there's other technical issues where I ended up having to call them. So I was kind of just waiting. I had, like, both of them open, and I was like, which one is it going to be? And I think they ended up using Personal. Actually, I'm not positive.
But that's kind of the issues with some of those older ones that hopefully the newer ones, now that we're moving to Teams, it's just Teams. You don't have to worry about whether you're personal. Though there is that. We should touch on that a little bit. That one of the Teams issues is which, are you logged in with your Hotmail or your personal account or your work account? And then once you're logged in, which tenant are you in?
This would be a whole separate talk.
Right. We'll have to put a pin in that, but there is a lot of confusion when people log into things. Again, if the meeting organizer has not, if it's not very loose, if it's like strict on who can come in, you got to be in the right tenant, and you have to have the right login.
Yes.
Whatever. And when I say right, I mean whichever one they selected and invited to their tenant as a guest. So yeah, that will. We'll just say there's a bit of frustration with that, and maybe we'll dig into that deeper. We'll do some demos with that later.
Right, for another video.
Yes.
Yep. All right, the last one that I don't have, like, the question maybe on is Amazon's. It's Amazon Chime. And it's actually interesting because I'll be starting my internship with Amazon soon, at least when we're recording this. So I'm about to be using that all the time.
Yeah, you'll become an expert.
Yep, so far...
I've never used it.
Really?
Yes.
So far I've only used it a few times, so I actually don't really know much about its capabilities, unfortunately. But I do know I was able to use, I think, just the web version for my interviews. Okay. I didn't want to quite download.
That's good. It's good to know that there's a web version and a desktop version.
Right, and seemed fine. I mean, we didn't do anything special because it was just a one-on-one interview. The mute, unmute, like video, whatever. I don't even think I shared my screen, but I'm sure you can do that. I'm sure they're not behind. It's Amazon.
Come on, right.
But yeah, I mean, that can be something that you guys can talk about with us in the comments. If
we'd love to hear about
that one or any other ones.
Yeah,
any that
which
we
ones
missed.
we missed.
Right, we'd love to hear about that. But I know that's another one that, I mean, I had no problems with it when I used it before. I know, especially there's the pressure of when you're getting ready for an interview, like, gotta get on early, make sure all your tech issues are okay. And that one, I don't think I had any tech issues.
And I think that's the moral of the story. If we wrap this up, tech checks, checking in. If you're at an interview with a new tool such as Amazon Chime, the day before, get on the tool. Maybe call your buddy, call your grandma, whoever. Check it out first. I don't know how many times we do a lot of these talks, and we're always invited to a tech check 24 hours in advance. It figures the one that we skip, one or two that we skip, that's when we run into an issue that we thought, well, we don't have an issue. It's Microsoft Teams. We've used this before. And, lo and behold, there's an issue. Do your tech checks.
Yes.
If it's a new tool, play with the tool, test it out with a friend. You won't regret it.
Right. No, very, very important. All right. So just 3 more things that I don't know are necessarily video conferencing tools.
They're tools.
But I mentioned earlier that there are at least tools that might at least be used.
Help with communication.
Right, with communication, right. And at least for me, I definitely used them sometime throughout school during this virtual environment. So the first one is Discord.
Yes.
That one, I use actually a lot. Yeah. And I know you can do video calls on there.
Yep, I've done it.
I guess I know you can do at least, but that might just be voice channels with talking to multiple people. I've never done a multiple video call with someone.
I mean, we did presentations. We did that University of Maryland Data Challenge.
Oh, right.
And so there was they presented, you know, like a video presentation. We had voice channels where we just wanted to chat. We actually had, you know, 4 or 5. We could see 6 different heads all having.
Okay, so
yeah.
it is.
So it had everything, which I was surprised because when I used to use Discord back in the day, it was really just chat. I had no idea it had all these cool features. That great. My pet peeve with Discord is that once you install it, it seems to never want to go away.
Oh, that is so true.
Like, I want to say don't run when I start, or it's always updating itself. It's always in my face when I reboot. I'm a little perturbed by that. I'm about to uninstall it because it just seems to be one of those, hey, Discord's happening, I'm updating. I'm like, no, Discord, please, just go off to the side.
So, to be honest, Teams is a little bit like this too,
yes,
where, so I would also work, and I'd be on a Zoom call for work, and so I don't have headphones or anything, and but this is particularly with Discord, that notification. Everyone knows that notification noise, and the people I'm on the call with, they're like, whose Discord is that?
Gotcha.
Teams does that when I'm like in a Teams meeting.
You can be in one Teams meeting, then you join another Teams meeting, you still get the
notifications from the last meeting.
Oh my gosh, and heaven forbid you bid like 2 or 3 of them, then all of a sudden like bing, bing, bing,
right,
bing,
so
bing,
Teams
bing.
does it, but I feel like once I close it or I'm out of the meetings, it usually dies down.
Teams pretty easy to right click and say exit to get out.
Right. Discord, I swear, I will close it out and I'm still hearing the notification.
Right, it's like
I have to like hard quit it.
Right, it's like I'm waiting in the background in case you need me. I'm like, no, I swear I'm done.
Right, I'm good. Don't need your notifications right now. So you're right. Other than that, love Discord. Okay, next one is Twitch, which I only used it once. University of Maryland had an event called Turpthon, and they streamed their event on there. So I was only just a watcher on that. But I'm not sure how much of that's for like video conferencing.
Yeah, I've never presented on Twitch. I've watched other people.
Yeah.
I know it's big for gamers to people watch people
stream.
But a lot of the tech folks, at least the people up at SharePoint Saturday Philly, they used it for their conferences. So they actually presented us. I believe we were right.
Oh, really?
We ended up on YouTube.
Okay.
But there was a Twitch element where, I guess it wasn't our talks. It was certain selected talks that they broadcast over Twitch.
Okay.
So that was kind of neat.
So that's another one that was used for sure. So we wanted to touch on that.
Yep.
And the last one is Slack. I know a lot of people are a fan of Slack.
Oh, people love Slack.
Yeah, it's similar to Discord where you have the channels and you have different groups. I don't remember what they're called on both Discord and Slack, but it's like the separate.
Right.
I don't know.
my pet peeve with Slack, Discord, and Teams, and I guess you could throw Zoom in there too, is I feel like every time someone says, hey, we're going to do this thing and we're going to use Slack, I have to sign up for their account. You know, I can't just join. They're like, here's the URL and you're joining theirs now, and I'm like, so I've got like 4 or 5 different Slacks. I've got, at least 2 or 3 different Discord. Like I have to log in and join a different team, and same thing with Teams.
Yeah.
Zoom not so much. I think just because most people are very loose with their configuration.
Yeah.
That might get worse as people, I'll tighten Zoom down. But definitely Slack is like the worst. I've got so many different Slack accounts. I'm like, which Slack is this? And and then which one do you stay logged into? Whichever project you're working on. But it's not like you can just leave it, because I'm done with that project. So now I got to go join another Slack. So it's not. I shouldn't pick on Slack for that, because that is a problem amongst all of these. Is how do you sort of have a central? Can I just be in as one person and belong to different things? They haven't quite solved that problem.
Yeah, and then one more thing I want to touch on that I really like about Slack and Teams, but Discord doesn't really have, is the replying in thread to organize those conversations. Discord has a reply to a message, but it doesn't make it a thread. But Slack definitely has that, and Teams definitely has that, and that's a great way for organizing what's being talked about. So, yeah, I believe that's all of them we wanted to talk about today.
Yep.
Let us know if we missed any, and really quick, do you hear that noise?
Ooh, what's that noise? Oh my gosh!
It's the Patrick
Prize Patrol!
Ooh, where we give away a mystery prize package with each episode. So this week we just want you to follow us on Twitter at Patrick Perspect, and we'll be posting this video link for YouTube, and we want you to retweet it so that your followers can see it as well. Get the word out. We want people to be seeing our videos, be part of our Patrick Perspective family. So that will be a really easy one for this week.
And I want to throw in a plug. Sarah and I are going to be speaking live and in person. At the North American Collaboration Summit. You might see it here on my shirt. It's at collabsummit.org. If you sign up for the in-person or the online full conference, there's a couple different tickets. It's a paid conference. Any ticket above $50, use the code Patrick50 and you'll get $50 off. So I think the $150 will be $100, and if you want there's a premium one for $1,500 where they do something really special. It'll be $50 off that. So Patrick50 collabsummit.org. We'll be there live in August.
Right, in Branson,
Missouri, right near the Ozarks from that famous TV show.
Yes, but if you can't be there in person, there'll be virtual as well.
Yes, there's virtual options as well, so it's hybrid. We'll be there in person. Some speakers will be Zooming. I guess they'll be using Microsoft Teams to get in, and you could do either.
So hopefully you can check us out there, see of our other conference talks, and make sure to tweet us on Twitter.
We should do something special. For any of you folks that attend one of our talks at the conference, we'll give you a prize.
Yes!
Mention the pay. You saw us on Patrick Perspective, and if you're in person, oh my gosh, it'll be a great prize. Yes, but even if you're virtual, mention that we saw us, hey, you're a Patrick Perspective person, and you get a prize.
Yes, make sure, if you're virtual, tweet us so we know.
Yes.
Or even if you just comment on, the talk.
Yes.
We should be able to see it.
Yes.
Right. Immediate prize for you.
Boom.
All right. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. We hope to see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.